everyone. It is now 3 o'clock and we are going to go ahead and start this webinar. So I hope you're here. I hope you can see everything and I hope you are enjoying this call. So my name is Kathy Goodwin and I'm going to talk to you today about how to sell a service that is complicated, complex, or hard to explain. And we're going to give you a hint that stories will help you deal with this challenge of trying to sell a service, make an offer that people have trouble understanding. I'm a copywriter. I've been online for over a decade. I work with clients who want to promote themselves with total professionalism. My clients often have stories that are dull or complicated or otherwise hard to explain. And the challenge with these clients is to create conversational copy, because as you probably know, that's the new buzzword, is conversational copy. We want to have content that people will listen to, content that will be engaging, content that people will actually enjoy reading. So we're going to go through and talk about how we do this today. First, why is this important? Well, it's important for several reasons. You probably heard the saying, a confused mind doesn't buy, and that is absolutely correct. But the truth is that there's more to it than this. First of all, nobody wants to work. Nobody wants anything that seems like it's going to be hard. So if you have a product or a program or a service or an offer, and it takes a while to explain it, you're going to lose people. We all do this. I mean, I do the same thing. I don't want to work hard to learn new software. I don't want to work hard to learn how to use something. I want things to be simple and easy. So people resist working, and that's why it's really important to present your offer as something that people will relate to. Secondly, even serious people want to keep it light. And I know this because I'm one of those serious people. I used to be an academic, and I understand people like complex words, they like scientific theory, they like understanding, they like analysis, but at the same time, they don't want to have to work too hard. They want to enjoy themselves, even at academic presentations. Many people don't realize that, but I've sat through many academic presentations and given many myself. And usually you open with a story, and sometimes it's a lighthearted story. You use humor in your presentations, even academic presentations. So be aware, people want things to be simple, they want things to be enjoyable and conversational. Here's a typical response to a complicated offer. It looks good, but what on earth is it? Here are some reasons why your offer might confuse prospects. First, we're going to look at the global question. Why do offers confuse prospects, just in general? And the reason is that the mind seeks patterns. You may have heard this actually if you studied psychology, but we want to explain things. Really important to be aware of that. So that's why when we watch someone doing something, if we see someone walking down the street and they're looking a little odd, we want an explanation. We want to know, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? What is motivating them to do that? If someone does something really strange or really rude, or maybe goes to a party and makes a scene, we want to say why. We want to look for blame. We want to assign reason. That's called attribution theory. We want to attribute the blame. We want to attribute something to that person. We do that inevitably. Some people say that's the reason we see patterns in astrology. We see patterns in synchronicity. I'm not going to touch that. If you can decide what you like. But there are people who would say, we see patterns in everything. So when you are working with your prospects, one of the things you want to do is make sure your offer fits some kind of a pattern. Because if you don't give them a pattern, they will find a pattern. And it may not be the pattern that you would like them to have. So think about what sequence, what logical sequence, what logical placement they will have with your offer. So there are three major reasons your offer confuses prospects. Number one, where do I start? Number two, what will I get? And number three, what on earth is it? So where do I start? Well, a lot of times when people look at something new, it's like, I don't know where to begin. You've given me a lot of ideas, but where do I start with this program? For instance, a while back, I joined a mastermind group that was one of those groups where they have a huge database with all kinds of wonderful resources that you can get. It was really exciting because you could do this, you could get information about Facebook, you could get information about all the social media, you could get information about prospective buyers for your service, all kinds of things. But where do you start? It was so confusing. So they had a video to walk people through and say, okay, here's the best way to use it. Whenever you have a walkthrough like that, when you have to watch a 30-minute video to understand a service, I think you lose people, and a lot of people drop out. You have to be highly motivated to want to go through this. Also, people want to just have it be easy. Remember in an airport, a lot of times we've been to an airport and you'll see little yellow footprints, like when you're going through customs in some airports, after you clear your luggage and you pick up your luggage and they say where to go through customs. Some airports have little footprints in the ground. Follow the footprints. They want to make it really easy for you. And that's a very good thing to do. Make it easy for people to know where to start, where to go next, and where to go to the end. And by the way, this is also a good principle for your website when you're working on your website. Make sure people know what path they're going to take, what page they go to after the home page, and then after that. Another reason is that people don't know what they're going to get. So that's the question they ask. What am I going to get? So it's up to you to paint a vision of the outcome, and that's usually in a story. And the outcome, it has to be something that people can see, not only abstractly, not only in a cloud, but imagine themselves doing something. Their life will somehow be different, and you can explain that. It has to be emotional. It has to be visceral on some level to make it worth their attention, to make it worthwhile for them to buy. It has to be something exciting in the outcome that they can get. A lot of times I'll see offers that say, well, after you finish my course, you'll understand why people treat you this way, or you'll understand more about what people are saying. That's not usually enough. Why do you care about why people are treating you this way? How will this understanding help you? Will it make you a better manager? Will it build your relationships? That's the key. So then say, after you've taken this course, you will understand why people behave differently. And then when you meet a new person, you will be able to see cues and look at nonverbal behavior and understand where they are coming from, what they want, how they want to be treated, how they want you to talk to them. That's what we'll teach you in this course. It becomes emotional, even visceral. People want to really get a sense of emotion and feeling when they are evaluating your offer. And a lot of times it's just too abstract. The second reason is that the third reason is people don't know what it is. This is because a lot of marketing experts are telling you, don't really explain what it is. Don't introduce yourself by saying, I'm a copywriter, I'm a marketing coach. Just talk about what you do. Well, that advice is good up to a point. But let's say you say, my business is about relieving stress. Well, I want to know, are you going to give people pills? Are you going to teach them meditation? Are you going to give them a new design for their lives? Are you going to give them massage? I want to know that because people have different reactions. Some people are not interested in aromatherapy. So if you say, I relieve stress, and then they discover it's all about aromatherapy, you lost them. And another example in finance, a lot of companies are now offering what they call alternatives to standard refinancing. So if you know how that works, if you have a mortgage on a home or actually any kind of loan, but it's usually mostly with a mortgage, the interest rates go down or you have a change in your circumstances. So you say, I think I'm going to refinance because I can get a better rate. I can get better terms. My credit is better. I have more money to put down. Interest rates are lower. So you go to a mortgage company, and a lot of times you go to an agent or a broker, and they refer you to alternatives. Well, there are companies now that say we offer something different. We are not a typical refinance company. We are not a typical mortgage company. That is absolutely terrific, except I have no idea what they're doing. I have no idea how they work. What they need to do is have a step-by-step, side-by-side comparison to make it work so people will not feel confused. Because this kind of thing can be complicated. How do you walk through a mortgage refinance? What do you have to do first? What do you have to do next? And mortgage companies also, in general, I just went through buying a place, and it's very hard to know what they offer and how they differ from one another. If they spelled it out, I think a lot of them would be much more successful. And then there are the mistakes in explaining your service. And that has to do with four things we'll go through. First, the balance between process and outcome, the gaps in explanation where you don't really explain enough. You leave people hanging and questioning what's going on. The biggest challenge being too abstract, and finally, not identifying who will benefit. So we look at this. First, there are the balance between process and outcome. The most people who start out in business, especially if they've been scientists or they've worked in manufacturing, they're engineers, especially if they're just anyone who's been maybe a psychologist who's worked with a process, and they're used to the process. So if they're, say, a therapist, they're very excited about the process of how they work with people, whether it's talk therapy, group therapy, action therapy. If they're financial planners, they're excited about the process. If we review your whole life, we have forms to complete. We understand where you're coming from. So many people, when they start out, really have too much about process, and therefore, or if you're Canadian or English, process. But if you have too much process, then you're leaving people with, well, what's in it for me? Why do I care about this method? If your process is, for example, that you have an intake procedure, and then you have 3 interviews to identify where they're coming from, and then you put them into a specific program, that's fine. But why do I care? How will it benefit me to go through this process? But if there's too little process, you're leaving people confused because they're saying, how does this work? What is going on here? For instance, if you're saying we're going to have a financial planning session, if you have too little about process, you say, well, we'll just get together and I'll work with you, and then you'll walk away knowing exactly what to do. Okay, what happens in between? Do you read my mind? Do you have to look at data going back 10 years? What are you going to do? And that's scary to people if they don't understand process. So you have to balance out the two. And then there are gaps in explanation. You see this a lot with all kinds of services, but a lot of times you'll see this with the big names, the gurus on online marketing, when they'll say, here is a way, we are going to show you how you can get 100 more signups per day for your email list. We have a secret process that will do that. That's just not enough, because you don't know, what are you going to do? Does it mean putting in lines of code? Does it mean buying something or doing something that requires an enormous amount of time that you really don't want to commit to, something that makes you uncomfortable in doing that? So if you don't give people enough information, that's as bad as giving them too much. That's as bad as overwhelming them with process. And they want to know, is this realistic? Because if it's too much like magic, people are just not going to believe you. And that happens a lot, especially with people who have been told by their coaches, just focus on the outcome. Talk about the benefit. Don't say things like, I'm a marketing coach. I'm a financial planner. I'm a stockbroker. I'm a real estate agent. And actually people want that because they want to have, remember we said people want patterns, and they want to classify you in some way. So give them something they can work with. And finally, the most common challenge I see among my clients is that they're too abstract. They focus on big problems and not the symptoms. And I'll give you an example here. Here's someone, this is a composite of 2 or 3 of my actual clients. My ideal client is a woman who wants to contribute her experience to make the world a better place. She's very aware of concerns about ecology, social justice, healthcare, and mental health. She's active in groups designed for social change. And she's trying to figure out how, this is the key here, how she can balance her passions with her career. So this is really a concerned person who may need your help. But how are you going to reach her? How are you going to get her to buy, to be motivated to take that step to buy from you? And the way you do that is you have to look at her symptoms. These are all very abstract. This doesn't really tell you how she's feeling on a day-to-day basis. So let's look at her symptoms. I'll give you some that, again, are based on clients I've worked with. They're composites, not one particular person. So if you think this is you, it probably is not, because I've got lots of clients with these challenges. So one symptom might be she comes home every evening exhausted, unfulfilled, wondering, where did the day go? I feel I'm not doing work that's aligned with my passion. And this is where a backstory would come in. What is her story when she has these symptoms? She keeps fighting with her partner because she's spending too much time with her nonprofit groups and not working for a promotion at her real job. Or 3, she's seriously thinking of quitting her job, but she's losing sleep thinking about it and she can't make up her mind. All of these are symptoms. These could be bullets for content. This could be the basis for setting up modules for a course. These could be really the basis for deciding that you have something people will want to buy. So the key is to look at symptoms, not problems. And notice how specific these are. This is not abstract at all. You can just feel this woman coming home exhausted, unfulfilled. You can imagine her fighting with her partner. Oh, that is horrible. Maybe she's worried about getting a divorce, because people do get divorced over these kinds of issues. I know a couple right now where the wife wants to do a lot with animal rescue and the husband wants to save more and not have her work for money. They're fighting over this. It's very painful. And she's seriously thinking of quitting her job. Again, people really are scared if she's got a good corporate 6-figure job. Those aren't easy to come by. Maybe she's 45 or 50, and if she walks away, she won't get another one. These are real symptoms, and you can tell a whole story about each one of them. And finally, not being clear on the benefit is the other final challenge. You have to paint a picture for your clients. You have to make it clear what they're going to get. And that's another one of the biggest ones, because people say, yeah, you'll feel good, you'll have this. But you've got to actually put the person into the picture, into the story. So for example, several years ago, there was a very well-known coach. I hate to use the word guru, but she was pretty close. And she had a one-day intensive high-end program where she invited people to come to her home and spend a day working on their business. And she talked about what they would do and how the time would be spent and the kinds of issues they would discuss. But what really got me was she had a line in there that said, first, we'll pick you up at the airport in a private car. And then she said, not only will we pick you up at the airport in a private car, but we will do lunch together. You can order lunch. We'll have it come in and we'll have a working lunch, or we can go out. There's a lot of really cool seafood places in the area. Really painted a picture of what people would get. And it gave them an idea that, sure, they would work on business stuff, which of course is what they're paying for, but they would also have a good time, and she knew where they were coming from. So that was very, very effective. So in explaining your service, being very, very clear on the benefit, not just being clear on the benefit, but painting an actual picture for your clients that they can put themselves into. They have no doubt this is where they want to be. So just 3 brief story tips. First, well, there are 3 types of stories, or 3 tips. One is the idea that stories can be step-by-step through a journey, where you take people through a journey. You have backstories, and you have a lead character that people identify with. So let's go through the step-by-step. What that means is, as we said earlier, people are scared of services if they don't know where to begin. So you can use your story to walk them through the process. And what I would recommend is picking a specific person, an exemplar. And we're going to see in a minute who that exemplar should be, how you choose the nature of that exemplar. But I was actually doing a serious, very serious white paper for a client who was talking about a new type of financial service. Very new, very state-of-the-art, and all the stuff about Bitcoin and blockchain and funds and hedge funds, all this kind of stuff. And we were trying to explain it, and he was realizing he was having a very hard time. And I said, why don't you do this? What is the goal of this white paper? Well, he said, I want people to come in and contribute their money and invest. So let's make up a story. Pick 3 investors who you might work with, 3 people, 3 types of people who might invest in your service. And let's walk them through. So Harry says, I have money. I've already invested in all kinds of out there products. I've got an extra $1 million sitting around. I want to have fun with it. I'm going to go into your service. And I'll start by doing this. I'll first buy some coins, some of your cryptocurrency. And then after that, I'll maybe start running one of what they call nodes. I'll start managing one part of the service, and then I'll bring in other people, and I'll create more coins. And then we have investor number 2, who doesn't want to go to that extreme. Investor number 2 maybe just wants to supply a service. Maybe they want to provide legal services. They're interested, but they don't really want to be part of it. And then the third person might just want to be a passive investor. And you talk about each of those people and make them come alive. And that is how you can communicate what you do vividly in a conversational way. You're still serious. You're still talking about what you're doing, but it's a very step-by-step, very clear path, and it'll hold their interest, believe me. And the second type of story tip that I emphasize is backstories. Think about where people are coming from. Remember, we looked at some of the challenges people had when they come to work with you, especially if it's something new. What are they scared of? And they're all scared, especially if they're coming to something that involves paying a considerable amount of money, or something that maybe involves changing. I mean, someone's going to mess with your mind or your body. This is pretty scary, no matter what it costs. So what you do is look into their backstory. Maybe they've been to 3 other services like yours. Maybe they've tried to get a mortgage before, and the last place they went for a mortgage, the people were judgmental. They made fun of them. They said, you don't make enough money. Your credit is lousy. Why are you even here? And they're scared. Now they're in your place. And once you know their backstory, you can say, okay, this is how we operate, and show them and demonstrate what you do. And if you get big enough backstories, you can apply them more generally to your entire marketing pitch, your entire marketing message. So for example, there's a very, very successful business owner who has a certain type of web development program. She works entirely with customers' backstories. Their backstories are things like, my web developer took off with all my money and my passwords, and I have no idea what he did, and now he's in Tahiti, and I don't know what to do with my website. Or someone says, I started out being charged $30 an hour. That's what the developer promised. That sounds really good. $4,000 later, I had a mess and no website. That's another backstory. When you put these stories together, which is what this business owner has done, she has a whole message that's tailored to the idea of freedom from web developers, freedom from webmasters. This isn't going to happen to you because you will take charge of your own website. So using the backstories allows her to have very, very effective marketing messages. And then the lead character. Think about who you want to work with. Make that type of person your lead character in the story. So for example, if I want to work with financial planners or stockbrokers, I will say, we'll have my lead character be a stockbroker or a financial planner. If I want to work with marketing coaches or business owners, that's who will be the lead character in my story. And then what are your next steps? Where are you going to go? We've talked about some of the challenges. We've talked about some of the ways to deal with those challenges. And we've necessarily just scratched the surface. We've talked about being too abstract. We've talked about symptoms rather than problems. We've talked about the need to clarify what the outcome will be. So what if you want to do more? What if you want me to look at your service and discuss how you can make your service more accessible? Oh, there are 2 types of programs that I'm going to suggest. I do have more. If this doesn't work for you, feel free to reach out to me and we'll either tailor a program to you or I'll find one that works. The Power Hour consultation on the upper left, that's my most popular consultation. We get together for 90 intense, productive minutes. We start before you even show up. We look at your materials, so we hit the ground running. And we really go through your main challenges. Sometimes we redesign a website from scratch. Sometimes we look at your message and we revise your message. Sometimes we start with one thing and we end up with another. For example, I recently worked with a client who said, let's look at my landing page for my lead magnet. And we did. But in doing so, we found out that we had to revise and refine the definition of her target market and what her message was. So we walked back to that. And then video consultations, I do have some one-on-one, one-time consultations if you want to email me about that. But I have a program where, let's say you're the kind of person who has a lot of little questions, and you can't be calling a copywriter to help you every time you need someone to look at a headline, right? So what you can do is sign up for this program, 3, 6, or 12 months. You can send me a question anytime, Monday through Friday, and say, for example, hey, my landing page doesn't seem to be coming together. What should I do? And then I will make a video, and you'll be looking over my shoulder while I comment on your landing page. And then the next week or even the next day, you might have a question along the lines of, I need to revise the headline on my sales letter, or I need to revise my autoresponder sequence for my new program. And you say, what do I do? And I could look at it and give you suggestions. Very fast answers, very quick feedback. And this means that when you've got something in process that you want to get out to people, you'll get it out there, it'll be heard, and you'll get it to work for you sooner. So stay in touch. That's a skyline of Philadelphia where I live. I took that picture myself. So stay in touch. And that's my website. That's where you can go for anything. You can have free downloads, a lot of free stuff there. And you can ask me questions. If I have described something you'd like to pursue further, and maybe you don't quite see a program that works, just send me an email. There's a contact link on the homepage of my website. And just go there and say, hey, I'd like to do something along these lines. How can we work together? Here's my budget. Here's my needs. How can we make this mesh? And we can do that together. So I encourage you to stay in touch. And I am going to be doing these regularly in the coming year. My regular webinars, they're purely instructional, very minimal selling. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I offer, because you never know. It might be something you've been looking for months, and here it is right in front of you. And if you have questions you'd like to suggest, questions that you'd like me to answer in future webinars or in blog posts, emails, just send me a note and I'll take care of it. And I'm not seeing questions today, and it is the half hour, and I like to keep these down to 30 minutes. So we will move forward, but feel free to message me with questions at any time after you've listened to the replay. Thanks again. Have a wonderful Thursday.